Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'd like to show you how I do a tire rotation on my 2020 F250. But before we get into that part of the video, apparently I've been rotating tires improperly my entire life. And I feel rather foolish. This is something I just learned about today. But I figure, give myself the benefit of the doubt here, I'll make a video about it, share this good information with you, my loyal and dedicated viewers, and we'll move on. So I was always under the impression that a tire rotation simply meant you're taking the front tire, rotating it to the rear, taking the rear tires and rotating them to the front. But you would keep the driver's side tires on the driver's side of the vehicle and the passenger side tires on the passenger side of the vehicle. But that apparently is not always correct. The only time you would want to rotate tires like I just specified is when you have directional tires. You could identify that you have directional tires by taking a look at your sidewalls, and there should be an arrow that points forward or the direction that the tires spin. If you have directional tires, then you have to rotate tires like I just specified. However, if you have tires that are non-directional, like the ones I have on my truck, these Goodyear Wrangler tires, there's no arrow, they're not directional, meaning that you could have them on either side of the vehicle. Apparently, the proper way to rotate tires on a four-wheel drive vehicle is like this. Apparently, you're supposed to take the rear tires, rotate them to the front, take the front tires, and rotate them diagonally to the other side of the vehicle on the rear. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get started. Before we get started, actually, we need to have a quick safety talk. Now, when you put your car in park, that parking gear is only engaged with the rear axle. Also, when you hit that emergency brake, the emergency brake is only applied to the rear axle. So you could think of it as though your front axle, your front tires, they're not connected to anything. They're basically in free spin mode. So whenever you jack up the rear of your vehicle, especially when you're on a hill, please make sure you put chocks under the front tire, and additionally, make sure you use jack stands. I'm trying to make sure you don't die. You're welcome. Now the first thing we need to do is pop off the lug nut covers, and I like to accomplish this by utilizing a pry bar, but I like to wrap it in a microfiber towel so that way I don't scratch the plastic. Now at this point, if you do not plan to use an impact driver to remove the lugs, you would need to utilize a 21mm socket and a 2-foot breaker bar. With all the tires still on the ground, you would want to crack all of the lugs loose. Do not remove them all the way. Just crack them loose. Now my intention is to jack up the rear of the vehicle evenly, install jack stands on either side, and then I'll jack up the front of the vehicle one side at a time. So what you want to do is position your jack underneath the pumpkin of the rear of the vehicle, and we will proceed to jack the vehicle up. Once both tires are approximately 1.5 inches off the ground, go ahead and install jack stands directly underneath the rear axle. Now slowly lower the vehicle down onto the jack stands, like so. And also ensure that the wheels are off the ground. That one's good. Now we need to jack up one side of the front of the vehicle. Now, I'm going to start with the driver's side, and the spot where I jack up on is to the right of the pumpkin, and it's basically the little nub that is the driver's side portion of the front axle. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a third jack, but I do have some wood, so I'm going to set up some cribbing and use this as my secondary means of protection for the front end in case that jack should fail. Alright, now that the truck is jacked up and stabilized on 3 sides of the vehicle, let's go ahead and start rotating some tires. But I do want to stress the importance of keeping one tire on the ground and shock to ensure that the vehicle doesn't move. But anyway, let's follow this diagram and start rotating some tires. Now, there is a little bit of rust under here, and that bothers me, so I'm just going to touch it up with some black Rust-Oleum that I have. I would like to try Rust Converter. Has anybody tried that? Any good results? Please let me know. But a word of caution, if you do plan to touch up the rust on your vehicle, stay away from the seals, because last time I touched up the rust spots on the underside of this truck, I got a little bit too close to the drive shaft output where it comes out of the transfer case, and that seal started leaking. I took it to Ford and they said it was my fault and they wanted to charge me like $600 to replace the seal. I did it myself, but just a word of caution. Now let's grease this knuckle a little bit. Grease fitting right here. I wish there were more grease fittings on the U-joints here, but you only get a grease fitting on the driver's side and passenger side knuckle. I don't know. You guys see any grease coming out? I don't want to overdo it here. I see some grease coming out. That's good. Let's put the tire on now. And as for the painting, it's not perfect, but it's better. I can live with that. Now there's a chance these tires might not want to come off. My advice to you is to take a sledgehammer and use the side, not the face of the hammer, but the sides, and just start knocking around the tire. And you're just going to have to bang on it for a while, and eventually you should get it. As for removing the tire, if you have a small chair, that helps. I like to take my toes, put it underneath the tire, grab the top side of the rim, and lift up. Oh, got to work it loose a little bit more, but yeah, but toes underneath the tire, just lift it out like so. That way you're not grinding these holes on the lugs. Now I've seen some horror stories where people really get their tires stuck onto their hubs. If you want to prevent that from happening, few tips. For one, rotate your tires regularly. Every oil change, get these suckers off. Don't leave them on there for 50,000 miles and expect them to come off easy. My second tip, where these end up getting stuck is this edge of the hub. That sits against the rim right here. And when you let that sit for a very long period of time, especially in the rust belt, it kind of binds to one another. So a good way to prevent that is to simply use some grease, or in my case, I use Never-Seez. So I take a little bit of Never-Seez, go around the hub here, and that'll prevent that tire from ever getting stuck on that hub. So let me lubricate this now. Another maintenance tip I have, if you have locking hubs, get in the habit of every time you wash your vehicle, just lock these and unlock these. It's a good habit to get into and ensures that your hub remains functional. So now I'm done with this front tire. I'm gonna slide out my... I'm gonna reinstall the chocks under this front tire. We'll go ahead and slowly get this front back down. Now I'm gonna jack up the passenger side front. Now I watched PTT with A-Rod, and he said that you can jack up on this plate right here by that bushing. I'm gonna jack up on the front axle as close to this mounting bracket as possible. I think that's a good spot. Now let's remove our cribbing and we will lower the front side. We are nearing completion. One of the final things we have to do is torque down all these lugs to 150 foot-pounds, if I'm not mistaken. And you want to do this in a star pattern. Then after you finish torquing down the lugs on all wheels, go ahead and reinstall the caps, hub caps. Now that we've completed our tire rotation, what we need to do now is tell the vehicle where we placed each tire on what corner of the vehicle. Basically, we just need to retrain the TPMS monitoring system, which is fairly simple to do. So this procedure will be the same for 17 through 22 Super Duties. So first thing you need to do is drive the vehicle for 2 minutes down the road, bring it back in the garage according to the owner's manual, and make sure you have an air hose nearby, and I'll show you what to do next. So now we need to enter the vehicle, and turning the ignition to on, but within 10 seconds of turning the ignition on, hit the flasher button 3 times. And that little horn just let us know that we entered the programming mode for the TPMS sensors. Well, I wouldn't call it the programming mode, but it's basically the retrain mode. So it wants us to train the front left tire first. So let's go down to the front left tire and I'll show you what to do next. So I'm at the front left tire of the vehicle, and what I'm gonna do is unscrew the valve cap, and I'm gonna start letting air out of the tire until I hear the car beep at me. When it beeps at me, that lets me know that the vehicle identifies that the front left tire is in the front left location of the vehicle. I tell you, you just heard the horn beep, but I did have to let out quite a bit of air. I probably let out around 20 psi. So let's go back to the instrument cluster. I'm gonna thread this valve cap back on and let's see what tire it wants us to do next. Train right front tire. So let's go to the right front tire. Okay. That time I only had to let out about 5 psi, so not as much as the first tire. Train right rear tire, so let's go there. Same thing, that wasn't too bad, probably let out 5 to 10 psi. And finally, train left rear tire. Okay, and the vehicle says training is complete. Let's go ahead and clear this message. Now, that process wasn't too bad, but it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. I really think the vehicle should automatically be able to detect where each tire is located, but I'm sure that just costs more money. Anyway, the final thing we need to do here is reinflate the tires. My recommendation, do not go off the max pressure on the sidewall of the tire. Go off the yellow and white label located on the B pillar on the driver's side door. So this tells us that we need to inflate the front tire to 60 psi and the rear tires to 65 psi. So let's complete that and we'll finish this job. Once the tire pressures are set to the proper specifications, that will complete the retraining of the TPMS sensors. Anyway, I would like to thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing. As always, I will catch you on the next one.